So I just had a guy in for a golf lesson, and we're talking about wrist angles, and we had this hack motion on, which in theory is quite a complicated thing, but really easy when you look at it. So actually looking at wrist movement, so on the screen up here, and we're looking really easily on, you know, how does that wrist sort of flex and extend, forwards and backwards, cock and uncock, or radial and ulnar deviate, and then how does that match into what your arm does rotation-wise. Now, the thing I think is going to help everyone out here is that if you just come and have a look at this up there, you can see that how you interact these bits with the club is vital for your success as a player. So we see that so many people have different grip types. So if I go like this at the start here and I'm grabbing the club and I've got what appears to be a weaker grip with the wrist slightly turned down, you're seeing now that I'm actually in a minus number there at address, okay? Conversely, if I went exact opposite and I went exceptionally strong, with a little bit of extra angle in here, we're seeing a really high number. So we're getting sort of way in excess of 30. So these are these degrees. Now, how's that going to react to what the club face is doing in the backswing? Okay, so the first thing for you to understand in anything that you're doing for your golf swing is, how do you grip the club, okay? Where are your arms sitting relative to your shoulders, your rib cage, which goes back to all setup stuff. But if you've got a left arm that sits a little bit back, which is going to turn that grip down, get a little bit weak, you look at a Jordan Spieth, a weaker left hand grip. So what he'd then do is, in that backswing, he'll have the left wrist that is bowed and the club face that's dead square. So if I go at the top there, the number it's giving me is -4 in flexion. But the club face is really square. If he obviously got more this way, the club face then gets really close. There's 17 degrees there, but the club face is exceptionally close. So really trying to pay attention, first of all, at the top is, what is that club face relationship to the arm? And then when we go forwards in this series, I'm going to relate that to, actually, how does that work into what your release type's going to be? Because you've got to be able to piece this together. There is not one size fits all. We're getting all this junk out there. We had a bit of a thing for a while where people thought, oh, it's really good to bow it, because John Rahm bows it, DJ bows it, Colin Morikawa bows it, but you've got probably another 8 or 10 of the world's top 20 that are the opposite and have got extending. So you've also got to be exceptionally athletic and got exceptional speed to make that bow work. It's not just the new modern way to swing it. It's just, the biggest bit is understanding the parts that work for your game. So that's the big word in that, is your game. Okay, so understanding what bits come together to give you the ultimate control of the golf ball. So if I was to grip the golf club here, just normally I've got a very slightly strong grip, closer to 3 knuckles here. I'm gripping it normal here, getting into decent posture. Now if I take that club to that top of the backswing here, I've got extension. Now, you can see that in here. Now, if I start at address and I use the hack motion data to tell me exactly what's happening with that wrist. So from address here, it's 40 degrees extended. I get it to the top and it's 46 degrees extended, but the club face exceptionally square. But let's say I thought, well, I want my wrist bowed. I get this now into a more bowed position. I'm still 16 degrees extended. Where have I got to be to get it into a bowed position? Because I really like how Victor Hovland swings it, so I'd like to do that. Surely that'd be pretty modern and cool. Right, well, I'm there now. Actually, I'm not. Now I'm there. But where's the club face? It's like straight at the sky. So how am I going to be able to play golf with that? Well, I'm going to have to side bend ridiculously to deliver anything like loft to get that club into the ball. Is that a match-up for my golf swing? Absolutely no chance, okay? So the grip and then how you're taking hold of it at the start, but therefore how it moves in the backswing and what the club is doing at the top is vital in terms of your understanding here. Now, it's not that we all need to be bowed or we all need to be cupped. There's so many sort of degrees of freedom in all of this that there's three distinct camps of movement that you generally tend to see, and there's loads of variances on all of this, okay? So it doesn't mean that you sit in exactly one of those boxes, but it gives you a really good idea of what's tailor-made for your game. So if I see someone who's got a weaker grip here at the start, okay, and they rotate, and they do bow it a little here, I'm going to expect to see on the way down a lot of rotation from the body and very, very, very little closure rate at the club face. We'll talk about how all of this matches in. But the big thing is, now we can measure what's happening, okay? You will actually see with that player at the top there, there'll just be a few degrees flexed, but it'll appear more flexed than other people will appear because of their grip style. So you want to understand this is, does your left wrist at the top of the backswing move towards extension, so basically putting a bit more cup in it, I don't mean loads more, but getting a bit more cupped, or does it move toward flexion, i.e. flattening it out, okay? Now when we measure it, there's very, very, very few players are at zero. Repeat that, very few are at zero. Tiger can appear to be at zero, but I'm telling you he's not, there's a bit of cup in there at the top, okay? So there is that flat left wrist that everybody wants to get, don't exist, all right? Not getting it there consistently, okay? You're moving towards or beyond it, depending on where you are, or further away from it. So there's the three variances. Now, you're understanding that if you've got a weaker grip and you extend the wrist and open it up more, you're probably not a good matchup in your backswing. If you've got a strong grip and you go to exceptional levels of flexion, so you can move towards flexion. So I could start at 43 degrees as a number, and I could then get to the top and I'm at 30. So I have actually flattened the wrist out from where I started, but I haven't got it bowed, okay? But I've moved it towards a DJ pattern, but I'm not going to be in a DJ pattern, okay? Or you can be in that person who starts it at 20 degrees and then increases it to 28. Now, understanding then at the top that what that club face should be doing. So, say if you've got a strong grip, you probably might increase that a little bit, okay? If you're neutral, you can play with either, okay? And if you are weak, you're generally going to be flexing it a little bit more. It's unlikely you're going to go the other way because you get a lot of high right shots, which would be really difficult to play with. Conversely, if you have got a strong grip, if you get it really close to move it more flexed at the top, unless you've got exceptional rotation on the way down, which is what some of the tour players can do, but don't forget, these are the best athletes in the world, we're not all of those, okay, then they can make that work. So what we'll do now is have a look at what the grips do and what it does at the top of the backswing. And go outside, have a little wander, play a couple of holes. I'm going to start to talk about what the releases do at the bottom. So how do you start to fit this together, understanding what the matchups are from the top of the backswing to impact to give you the control of the ball, because that's all that matters. Then after that, we're going to do another video, and that one's going to talk about transition and what the club does in transition, how the wrist interacts with it, and what the club face is doing. So therefore, you can see how these three bits then all piece together. For that, look at some tour players, and then important of all, how do you apply all of it to your game in all of these matchups? So a little series, I'd like you to come along with me and watch it. Head outside now, and hopefully you'll get some great info on releasing the club.